Infrastructure is crumbling and the problems are only getting worse. The pressure to find solutions is hot. Let's talk about why American cities have no water, no electricity, and no money to fix their infrastructure problems. Welcome to the Infrastructure Hot Seat Podcast, hosted by Chad Smeltzer.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Infrastructure Hot Seat Podcast. My name is Chad Smeltzer. I am your host. Today, I have a great guest, John Klostermann with the City of Dubuque, Iowa. Thanks for joining me, John.
Thanks for having me, Chad.
I have known you for a long time. I guess we've probably known each other for about 10, 12 years now. We've gone to trade shows. We've hung out. We talked about root control and all these other services that I was involved in. And I wanted to learn more about you today. How you got into the industry would be one of those things I'd love to start with.
Wow. You're going to go back a long ways. So, my really interests probably started back when I was a kid, and my dad was a carpenter, and he would roll plans out on the table as he looked a day ahead and plan his day ahead. So that probably sparked some interest. The economy definitely had something to do. Back in the 80s, things were kind of bleak at the time. So when an opportunity arose that I could, have a position with the city, I jumped on that because I realized that was really an opportunity. And then from there, it's just really been, combination of continuous learning and trying to take the right step forward to move forward through my career here. I've been with the city of Dubuque and in public works for 47 years.
47 years. Wow. Now, did you start at the bottom in a field?
Yep, okay. I started out in the field as a laborer and then took on different responsibilities over the years. When you and I worked closer together, I was a street and sewer maintenance supervisor, so that was a field position. Operates basically I did all the day-to-day operations involved with street and sewer maintenance, so that was my role. Yeah. I did that for about 25 years.
That's amazing. That's a long time of history in public works, moving your way up through the ranks, so to speak. And one of the things that's amazing to me is, a lot of cities hire engineers to be a public director. You, on the other hand, I don't know if you don't have a PE degree, right? So what do you think makes a difference from someone with a PE versus someone without a PE as a leadership role?
Yeah, it just depends what your roles and responsibilities are. In the city of Dubuque, public works, while we go under that name, it could be public service. It could be, you hear that term a lot now lately, public service. We provide service to the community. So while we provide, some construction and street maintenance and sewer maintenance and things like that, mainly what we do is provide services, solid waste area. We run a landfill. We do a lot of other things, manage flood control. We have an area we call the Port of Dubuque we maintain. So we do a lot of different things in public works. That has allowed me to move into this position, whereas in other positions like, for example, our engineering department.
Yeah.
That department head is a PE. So
right.
More involved with those long-term projects and bigger projects and construction projects. So,
right. So that's kind of where I was. You have the leadership skills. You don't need to have a PE because you've learned so much out in the field that you probably know more than a lot of these. And nothing against engineers, but some of them don't spend a lot of time out in the field. They get their PE, they come in, and they don't do any construction and that kind of stuff. And
there's just a difference between practical knowledge and sometimes book knowledge, and we definitely need the book knowledge side. There's no doubt about that. I would never take that away, but there's something about some practical field experience that also helps too. So
yeah. So, how many employees do you have in public works?
Well, right now we're at about, it'll vary a little bit between the seasons, but we're at 94 public works employees for the city.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah. That's a lot to manage every day.
That includes fleet maintenance. So that includes, there's 5 major areas, sanitary and storm sewer, fleet maintenance. The landfill is another one, solid waste. So, it takes a lot of work to provide the service. It takes a lot of people to do that.
Yeah, no, I that's great that you're you take that leadership role and lead that team to fulfill the jobs of what we need out there. Snow plowing every day, just getting things off the road, filling potholes, all that stuff that we have to do in public works. And then I was listening to some other public works leaders this week. I was at an event, and they were talking about how the public works department was in charge of like setting up a restaurant area for picnic, during COVID to like help out these restaurants set up an area for eating outside, during COVID. Everything had to be isolated outside and things. So
I was like, man, that's a public works thing. Yeah. So those are the extra things that come up with public works that, kind of exciting sometimes,
Yeah.
You may help provide traffic control or some type of security for a presidential visit. I mean, those are always unique. We just had our holiday train go through Dubuque, and it stops in Dubuque and does a short show. So, while police are in charge, of course, of the event and the control of the people that are there, they need assistance with Type 3 barricades and no parking areas, and so we support a lot of different activities that go on throughout the city too.
Yeah, a lot of odds and ends sometimes that pop up, I would imagine. You mentioned back in the 80s versus now. What are some of the differences that Public Works has changed in what you've seen?
Yeah, so it's a completely new and exciting field.
Yeah.
Back then, we were in the 80s for us in Dubuque. We had some of the highest unemployment in the nation. We've been able to turn that around through partnerships with the community and be able to reemerge and re-identify ourselves with the river but just strictly on the public works area, the technology is advanced so far.
Yeah.
In all areas of public works, whether it be snow and ice control, whether it be sanitary sewer that we both know that we've dealt with for a long time, and the technology is related to that.
Yeah.
And everything. But I think, technology is probably the biggest area that's changed over the year. But then our workforce has changed also. We have a different workforce that values time at home with their family. And
right.
We have, just different things that we have to learn to work around.
Yeah. Now, you mentioned workforce. You mentioned in the 80s, the unemployment was high, right? So getting a public works job was like the best thing out there, right? As a great place to be. You got a lot of benefits.
It worked for me.
Yeah, exactly. So it was a stable job. And now you look at things with the workforce and you can't find people to work in public works hardly, it sounds like. What's your take on that?
We're in a highly competitive position right now to fill open positions that we have, and that's regardless if it's field positions or if it's administration fit positions. Engineering positions are hard to fill. It's just we're in a very competitive position right now, and as compared to the 80s, we were on the high end of that competitive position, and right now we're probably not. We're not keeping up,
right,
with the private sector right now. We're kind of falling behind on that. So, we always encourage our applicants to look at the total picture.
Yeah,
because we do have some benefits that are equal to or better than the private sector, but our wages are definitely not keeping up with the private sector right now.
Yeah, inflation's making a big impact on all of our budgets and expenses and things like that. So, if you said time and family, which I think is one of those key factors the workforce. Well, you mentioned it, right? The workforce is looking for more time with their family. How do you think you can support them more with time with their family? Is it just like, because you do a lot of overtime, right? So they're away from their family sometimes late at night, in the early mornings, trying to keep the roads clear. do you give them like extra time off? Like, how do you accommodate that need for more time with their family nowadays?
I tell you, that's something we really struggle with because we know that need is there, and it's a good need. It's not that it's not a good need.
Right.
So we try to be as flexible as we can, but yet we still have to fill seats, when it comes time to respond to whatever a weather event or for us right now, it's snow and ice control. So, but we've seen that we have a new benefit now, and that's paternity leave. Where we'll provide that extra time off in the case of a birth in the family, and that's a great benefit for that person. It just makes scheduling a little bit different, And when you're dealing with maybe some open positions already, it's just something that you have to look ahead and be prepared to deal with.
Exactly. So moving into obviously taking care of your workforce, now you have your teams handling all the aspects of keeping the city running, right? And now you have projects. Now you got to fix stuff, right? How are you able to manage budgets now with the inflation, the estimation of projects are going up, the budget money is not going up? How do you balance all that when you need to get stuff repaired, replaced, with no money?
We're in budget season right now, so we're looking right now. You build your fiscal year 24 budget, which is both capital and operating. And there's just a lot of unknowns all the time.
Yeah.
This year it seems to be more unknowns.
Yeah.
And some of that is because of the federal dollars that may or may not come your way.
Yeah.
We hear a lot about the federal dollars that they're trying to invest into the infrastructure. And, as a city, we want to make sure we take full advantage of whatever we can. That's good for our community. But yet when you're building those budgets, how much do you rely on that? Because these are some big numbers they're throwing out on the federal end, but realistically, when you spread that out across the country and then make it competitive,
right?
Those are all competitive grants in most cases. You got to try to find that balance about, okay, how much can we really rely on, or maybe we can't rely on nothing this year because you won't really get it for another fiscal year. We always look at on our capital side 5 years, and and basically we build that based on information that we have right now. Yeah. And then you adjust every year as you go. But we're an older city. We're the oldest city in Iowa. Yeah. And we have old infrastructure. And a lot of that oldest infrastructure is in the ground and unseen. So it makes it challenging, but yet when you're trying to do growth, you also have to deal with that. You just can't add another sewer to an older sewer that maybe is already undersized. So you got to look at the whole picture when you do that. And the state requires you to do that. Mm-hmm. But once again, if you got to run a secondary sewer or something to serve an area, that's all additional cost, and that's all a real challenge with everything. So budgeting overall. And it's always been, there's never been enough money for all the projects that are out there, both when you look at, growth, but on the maintenance side, it's the same scenario. There's just not enough money to keep it up. So the key is to, invest in the infrastructure you have, try to make that last as long as it can, and then make repairs as you can, identify what your highest needs are, and then get those taken care of.
Yeah. How do you prioritize your infrastructure now? Is it through like inspections? Like, how are you gathering that information?
Yeah, so it just depends what kind of infrastructure it is. Pavement, for one thing, is always inspected on a 3 years basis by the state, but we do our own in-house inspection every year, so we kind of keep a handle on that. Sanitary sewers, as you know, is an ongoing area that we're always continuing to try to identify defects in the system when we're out doing regular maintenance. So that could be through CCTV, and it could be through a lot of different types of tools that we have to do that. We try to track it all our costs into our system is Cartograph, an asset management system, but there's a ton of them out there. So we kind of take that and then run some different scenarios and come up with your highest priority projects.
Yeah, that's how everybody does it. That's what you got to do is just prioritize. I called it triaging. Triage the system, so to speak. Triage everything you can. Figure out what needs fixed first. So
right, exactly, and that a lot of times it comes down to that. It may not be a priority one time. Now all of a sudden it's a priority. So then it's a matter that then you got to start finding the money by shifting projects. I mean, that's the only option that you would have.
Yeah. So as you're developing these projects, you got your engineering department working on building out the projects. Then, you move into procurement, contracting, getting the jobs done, getting everything repaired that you need to. How are you, managing contractors? Contractors are in a tough spot too. They got labor issues. They got a lot of work out there. They're trying to all keep up with, right, and keep all their cities they work with happy. How do you work with contractors and basically in a private-public partnership, right? That's basically what we're doing. What are some of the challenges for you guys when you're working with contractors?
Well, I think the challenge starts right from day one when you start to build that project and try to build a project budget.
Yeah.
Lately, with the costs of materials on the rise all the time, the availability of that arise, I don't see it managing so much with the contractors. They want to get the work done that they said they would do. They definitely want to do that. They want to do it as fast as they can, so they can move on to a different project. I mean, they don't want to. So I don't manage a whole lot of contractors.
Right.
We work with them. Hopefully, we're a partner in this, like you said earlier. That we'll do whatever we can if we got to extend out the project time or things like that we can do within our agreement, and then hopefully they can come back and they can finish up their project in a regular time as fast as they can, because that's their goal too. Nobody's trying to drag projects out. Nobody's making any money when they can't get in and get it out. We want to make sure that things are ready for them when they're ready to come in. So if there's some prep work that has to be done or something, we want to make sure that we get that done.
That's helpful.
I see it more as a partnership and not really a management type deal.
Right. I remember working with you guys, and your team was always great to work with. They would come out, take care of stuff, make sure we can get our crews in and out. It was a great place to work, so appreciate that. Have you had any experiences with contractors and I've heard a lot of stories about contractors coming in, doing shoddy workmanship and just rolling out or not even completing the jobs and leaving. Have you ever experienced stuff like that?
I really have not.
Okay.
And I don't know if it's just in our environment that we don't work with a lot of outside contractors. I mean, there's contractors that maybe come from, depending on the project, maybe 60, 90 miles or somewhere, it's not very unusual that we work with contractors outside that radius.
Yeah.
In my experience on the projects, and I don't have a lot of big projects, that's more on the engineering side, but we work with contractors that provide us value and can do the things that in public works that we don't want to get into because we know that's not cost effective for us to do it.
Yeah.
And then you try to build that relationship before you get into the project. Mm-hmm. So everybody's all on the same page. And so I don't have that horror story that some people maybe have. I was involved once where the contractor, just filed bankruptcy in the middle of the project, but because of our upfront contract documents and the fact that they had to provide a bid bond and a bond for performance, that all worked itself out. Insurance company came in. They hired actually another contractor to finish the project up. That's the closest thing that I've really had in years that I've been involved in. Now, there's other stories out there that are more severe, but, I guess I've just been lucky. I haven't really. I've worked with just great contractors.
Yeah. Sounds like you have a good perception on contractors and their ability to get things done, either through interviewing them or talking to them, meeting with them. One of the things we talk about this on the live infrastructure show roundtable. I do that once a month now. And the group of us talk about, adaptation to technology. We talked about it at the beginning. You mentioned technology is moving so fast, but how do you think, because as we bring, like as a salesperson, like myself, right? I come to you and I say, John, I got this greatest thing since sliced bread. How could salespeople like myself learn how to work better with cities? Because I think you get inundated with like, hey, this is the best thing, since sliced bread, use it. How do you filter through all that?
Well, I usually try to learn from all the salespeople out there, and we've gone to shows together. You've been on the booth side, and I've been on the aisle side, and you go down the aisle and you just try to learn as much as you can, but then you really have to determine what's going to work. Identify what your problem is, and then what's the best solution. There might be 4 or 5 different types of solutions out there. You just got to determine, through your research on your own and get a comfort level on, what's the best solution for your problem.
Yeah.
I don't think it's a matter of, how I work with this. I work with a sales team in the same as if I would work with a contractor because, they're providing me with the information that I don't have.
Yeah.
Is it directly related to their product? Yep. But, I can go down 2 more booths and I can get the same type of information from another vendor that would tell me about their product.
Yeah.
Maybe a solution for the same problem, So, you build those relationships and for me, it's a matter of, what can I learn? How does it fit in? I was just looking at a great project the other day, but, maybe down the road we'll have a spot for it, but just we don't have that project right now.
Right.
It's good that I know what's out there. I mean, that's kind of my responsibility to know what's out there. And
right.
If problems come up, I know what possible solutions are. I don't know every solution, but possible solutions where you can go back and you remake those connections up and try to figure out what is the best.
Yeah, that's good information, John. It's helpful for us as salespeople to understand a little bit more about how you determine what you need for the city.
And Chad, a lot of these projects takes years to get through. So, I may talk to you about a project today that I have no project on the board. I may, in the back of my mind, be thinking of one that's probably coming up maybe in a few years or something, but a lot of these projects take a long time to develop. And, if anything, there's sometimes, you get the feeling that, on the sales side, they think it's going to happen. And, as soon as we're going to sign a paper tomorrow, And in most cases, that's just not the case. And you can probably talk about it better than I can, but I always try to make that person aware of that though, too. I mean, we're looking at long-term solutions here, so it's probably going to be a long time.
Yeah. Yeah. And that comes down to money again, right? You wish you could probably get it done today, tomorrow, whatever, right? But it comes down to budget money. You can't fix all your infrastructure at one time. That's for sure. Like we just discussed. So I think that's a lot of the long sales cycle I talk about, it's the understanding that government is a long sales cycle. You're not just going to walk in there and they're going to buy your product immediately. Sometimes they might, sometimes they it just doesn't happen that way. It might, like you said, take 2 to 3 years. I guess the point of it is how could we find projects that relate to what we're trying to sell, because, we have a great solution, right? But here's the thing with government that I found is like their procurement systems are isolated, right? Everything's centralized within their city, and they promote stuff on their websites, but it's hard for us to find all those projects that are out there. We got to go through third-party software systems. We got to try and call you or call the engineers all the time to say, hey, is there a project? Like, what's coming out? I think there's, what's your take on like communication within this whole local government space in America? Because we don't have a centralized procurement system to show all the opportunities. So it's kind of finding like a needle in a haystack. What do you think about that?
Well, that's a great question, because we do have procurements systems out there once we decide what we want to buy. Yeah. Or we can buy off of a state bid, or we can buy off a governmental bid, or things like that. So that part's in place. If I heard you correctly, how do we get it out? How do we get our projects out ahead of time so that different solutions have a chance to come and educate us on what the solution might be? And I don't think there's nothing magical about that. It's all about hard work and making connections, and it's the best connections are just what we're doing today. Face to face. Unfortunately, that's the way it is. You probably know better than I do, but I just don't know the magical answer for that one. Yeah,
and it's from my side of point of view, right? I see how we have there's thousands upon thousands of cities out there, right? It's like, okay, well, what city needs to fix their sanitary sewer today or tomorrow? Like, did they have a collapse? Did they, like, where's the jobs at that we could potentially have? And I think it's just, one of those things where it's just spread out through so many different websites or platforms, that we just, and then we have to sign up on all those platforms to get data about the procurement opportunities that they either get off the websites, things like that. And it becomes really cumbersome from our side of you. I'm just giving you the opposite look at this thing from a sales point, where it's tough to track down. And I mean, we probably don't have an answer for that today, but that's one of those things that is frustrating sometimes on our side.
You're right. I have no answer, but yeah, we talked about how things change, and there's probably not a reason why that somewhere couldn't be automated.
Yeah.
Somewhere along the way, if somebody posts something, all of a sudden that through the magic of whatever becomes picked up by another solution, and then all of a sudden, it's a one-stop shop. But that's way beyond me, man.
Yeah. No, I'm working on that slowly but surely. Gradually, we're working on it. Big Cameron. I'm gonna plug Big Cameron right now. So okay, as we're finishing up, we got like three minutes left, John. So you've been in public works 40 some years. What would you tell young professionals coming into the business? Eventually, you mentioned on the document that you're going to retire, right? What would you say to the younger generation coming up and that are eventually going to replace you?
I think, people need to consider working for a city or working for a state or the public side of the infrastructure and work related to that, because it's a great field. There's a lot of great benefits from it. It does take commitment. So you need to be committed to your agency and be flexible enough that when things come up, you're able to drop what you're doing. And this is on the field side, but drop what you're doing and address that need. Doesn't happen all the time, but there are times that you're going to have to do that. So, I always say public works is a family affair, because it does affect your family life. There's no doubt about it. We talked about different ways in which, is a benefit of doing that, paid vacations and time and holiday time off and things like that. So there's a lot of benefits that go with that. My initial thought is nobody grows up thinking they want to be in public works, but somehow along the way we need to change that. Yeah. And get, people involved in what we do. And the best way to do that is educate them when they're young. We have a group coming in next week that we're going to take through our public works, give an overview of public works, take them to the
Nice.
shop, and go from there. So those are the things that we try to do in order to encourage young people to think about public works.
Yeah, that's great. Get the community involved, start showing them what you do. I think that's a great approach to getting people, the younger generation's interest in public works. Show them a wastewater treatment plant, show them the water plant. When I was younger, I always thought it was cool. I was like, this is the water plant. There's big tanks with all the water in it, the carbon filter, whatever the heck was in there. Anyway, sand and all that stuff. I thought that was amazing to see those kind of things. And that's a great way to get engagement. So, John, you're retiring when?
This is my last winter.
This is it. Is there a certain timeline?
I don't have a retirement date picked, but it'll be before next winter.
Okay.
Yeah, I've let my manager know that this will be my last winter. So,
any plans after retiring?
That's an interesting thought. I really like what I'm doing. So, if I wasn't ready to retire, I'd probably continue to do it. So I'm a kind of a creature of habit, though. I need to have a reason to get up and go. So I don't know. We'll see what the future brings.
Yeah. Well, hopefully you get into some kind of consulting role or something where you could help other cities solve some of their problems, because there's a lot of need out there in the future for that. I'm sure. So, well, thank you so much, John, for being on the Infrastructure Hot Seat podcast. It was great to talk to you and get a little insight into your life and your experience in public works. Appreciate it.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity, Chad. Good talking to you.
Yeah, thank you so much.
You bet.
Thank you for listening to the Infrastructure Hot Seat podcast. We hope that this show brought you some insight on relevant topics within the infrastructure world. Please join us every 2 weeks on Tuesday for the next episode. If you're interested in being a guest on this podcast, please set up a 15-minute interview with your host at calendly.com/Chad Smeltzer.